That's all he'll be thinking about.
And if the yellow jersey catches up to the Lance Armstrong, Contador and the rest of the challengers group, that will be a good sign for the leading group of 4, because they will then probably give up the chase behind the 4 men.
That's right, there's no reason to chase anymore. This is the La Tongue de l'Air, which is in the municipality of the area which we know as Le Port. It's 2 hectares of water down there, and as we've gone around the inside, it must have looked very welcoming at the moment.
It certainly is, and it actually sits in an area which is known as the pick of the 3 seigneurs, and I think we're looking at more than 3 seigneurs in the sport of professional cycling here this afternoon, because in the group Contador, I think all of the grand seigneurs of the sport are currently present and correct.
They've done their battle. They've waited for the end yesterday. The Envolé was sadly too far from the end of the ride, and somebody else just shot into that pack, and I think it was Garati.
Yes, but look at the difference. That is the group of the yellow jersey at, what, 5 seconds, and they're very shortly going to all come back together.
Goubert's been fantastic.
A little bit of a flurry of activity from Andy Schleck, giving us an eye-opener as to what we can expect for when we get into the Alps in about 10 days' time. Today, the climb, I think, just a little bit too far away from the finish to dislodge the yellow jersey, but it's certainly created a little bit of excitement.
Well done, Ronaldo. He's got right back, and when he gets his breath back, he might say thanks, Stefan, for that. We're still in the yellow, mate, as they now have settled down again. I think they've eased very slightly at the front here. It's very steep in the middle of the climb. It's shallowed a little bit now.
Yes, there's a flat section at around about 3 kilometres to go. Then it kicks back up again to the 8%. Just at the back of the group, as we can see here, the man who took the lead in the King of the Mountains classification yesterday. A great ride by this guy, you know, 23 years of age, Phil. Just behind him is Thomas Vogler, a stage winner in the Tour de France so far, and the usual style of his, out of the saddle, battling with the machine to stay in contact. But I think we'll talk a lot more about the man on the right at 23 years of age. He really is, I think, going to be a star of the future.
Well, when he got to the finish yesterday at Arcolis, and then Romain Failure, his brother arrived, his elder brother, it was Romain who was in tears because he was so emotionally moved by the fact his younger brother had won a stage in the Pyrenees and pulled on a leader's jersey. Because last year, it was Romain himself who grabbed the yellow jersey for the day at the result of a long breakaway.
Quite remarkable as well, because Romain Failure finished 28 minutes behind his brother on the stage in the group that we know as the Autobus, alongside Mark Cavendish and most of the other big sprinters.
Look at the tempo here now, Sanchez, the bit between his teeth. He says, I'm winning this stage, I'm going to drive, and I'm not letting anybody catch me up. He's only got 1:36 advantage with the others here. Vladimir Efakine, he's a teammate of the yellow jersey. He's sitting at the back. We call him the ticket collector, checking on the numbers, doing nothing, just causing a few problems at the back, watching where they're going. But if it came to the finish, I guess he'd go to first place rather than fourth.
There, the yellow jersey moving to the front, and the reason he's done that, Phil, is just to show everybody that he's back in the race. I have recovered and I have returned to the front end of the main field, and you haven't got rid of me just yet.
Zubeldia is dropping back here to go back to Johan Brunel and pick up a bottle. Well, that was a big effort. It's not done the big damage in the end, but it looked as though it was for a while. Now he's collecting the bottles now to get more back to the leaders.
But Phil, that acceleration from Andy Schleck showed us just exactly what we can expect as we start to go forward. Just sliding back through the main field there was David Miller, and he survived today after a very difficult day in the mountains yesterday, where he lost a whole chunk of time.
And he wasn't going off the back of the group, he was going back bottle hunting as well. So clearly they backed off the gas in that group. Now the yellow jersey has rejoined. If he'd have stayed off the back, they'd have kept going. And Mikel Astolosa, who started this split with a tremendous lifting of the pace, he's really struggling now. There's that left arm again. Come on, who's next to do some pacemaking? They're getting up towards the summit of the Col d'Agnès. We are going to have a pretty dramatic chase all the way to the finish after this. There's no more hills.
I think everybody now going to adopt a moment of truce as they realise the action was done at the front end of the main field. They did get rid of the yellow jersey, but he admirably fought his way back to not panic, and that's the important thing, I think, for Nocentini, not to panic in a situation like this. He knows he can't respond to accelerations from an Andy Schleck, but he also knows that if they slow down, he's got a great chance of coming back into the event.
A bit of an acceleration here by B-Box Bouygues Telecom. And that should cause a little bit of a reaction, I would think. 1:56 at 1:55. Not a marked man, whoever he is, he's just made the move. But if I'm going to have a go at thinking who it is, I'd go for Alexander Pichou or Yuri Trofimov. One of those two are the most likely to try that.
A move here by Vladimir Efimkin. Now, he is the rider who has been in the original group of 10.
Points,
and right now, Phil, he's always been sitting at the back of this group. This is not a move for the points. I think this is a move here to try and get himself a lone victory. Let's not forget, sadly for Efimkin, he won a stage in the Tour de France last year, and hardly anybody knows at all about it, because he finished second on the stage into Bagnères de Bigorre, which is not far away from where we are here, behind Ricardo Rico. Ricardo Rico was later disqualified from that victory because he was found to have had the blood doping.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he will have been told in his race radio that the yellow jersey has recovered and is now okay with the leaders again. So he's not endangering the situation now by having a little dig. He's gone about 1.5 kilometres from the summit, I think, at the moment. But it looks as though Astolosa is recovering here with Sanchez, and they've got rid of Sandy Cassar at the same time. So the attack was worth it.
It certainly was worth it, but the Spanish riders, I don't think you're going to get rid of them quite so easily here this afternoon as they pull themselves back up to Efimkin. And they will be a little bit annoyed by that. They will have found a bit of anger to chase down that man, because when somebody's been sitting behind you for as much as 100 kilometres, then you, well, he's going again. He's not
whatever
bothered.
They said, he was offended, so he's off again now. That's the second attack. He took a good look at the face there of Astolosa. It's been a mask of pain for about an hour and a half, in fact. It's not just happened, and it looks like Astolosa is still digging deep and dragging Sanchez across to him once again.
You know, a couple of years ago in 2007, the man in second place there in the orange jersey, Astolosa, he finished in 9th place overall in the Tour de France. So he will not be scared about these big mountains, and he will not be too scared at all about the attacks coming from Vladimir Efimkin. He knows that he can stay in contact with him. And the one who's actually struggling on the front end of his saddle is Luis Leon Sanchez, and he just wants to get over the top of this climb in contact with the group.
Well, there's inspiration. The Basque flag flying on the left of the road for Astolosa, who rides for a Basque team. And he's done a lot of work here. Sanchez just wants him to drag him along in the hope he can win the finish down in Saint-Giron. Once over the top, 44 kilometres to run to the finish. And all of it is downhill. So then the speed merchants will try to get them back.
1 kilometre to go to the summit of the climb. That's going to take them 3 or 4 minutes. And again, Vladimir Efimkin getting out of the saddle. Luis Leon Sanchez there, I think, about to give him a couple of words.
2 leaders likely to change tonight. The King of the Mountains jersey should switch across to Cofidis Christoph Kern. And the green jersey held by Mark Cavendish now for about 5 days. That will swing across to Thor Hushovd, who got the early points in the sprint competition to move ahead there. And just look at this, the boys in blue, they don't even lead the Tour de France, but you'd think they would the way they ride it. Leipheimer on the left of our picture, dead centre is Lance Armstrong. Over far right, we just seen peeping in is Alberto Contador. David Miller has come back into the thick of the action, so we have Miller, and we also have Wiggins riding in the ride of his tour ride of his life. Andy Schleck has slipped to the back, but he's not in trouble.
With the red number on his back, the most aggressive rider of yesterday, Christophe Riblon. He was in the breakaway for a long time, and he's struggling to stay in contact here.
It's a pity he's not in the break again, because he will be back in the lead in the King of the Mountains. But the big points are going still with those 4 riders up front, at least 4 riders up front at the moment. But you know, this infighting, they've eased off the gas. It's 2:20 now. There is Wiggins riding right on the side of some of the finest climbers in the world. And this is a man with 2 Olympic medals on the track last year in Beijing.
And they were gold. He's looking here very comfortable, just concentrated on his style. Over to his left-hand side is his teammate, Christian van der Velde, 4th overall in the Tour de France last year. Andy Schleck just tested his legs a little bit this afternoon, but he really is quite relaxed, and I reckon we're going to see a little bit of fun from Andy Schleck once we get into the big high mountains of the Alps, and why not tomorrow on the slopes of the Col de Tourmalet.
He's in no trouble at all. He's going to pedal back to this group. He's looking after himself very well. He's still got to be considered a favourite for this year's Tour de France, Andy Schleck. He's just up against an incredibly strong team from Astana, and they've been doing all the dictating of the pace. They're answering all the attacks too. They're not allowing the men they fear to go very far. When Cadel Evans attacked from the gun this morning, He got about half a minute. It went out to about 45 seconds, and then they reacted and they hauled him back on the way down into the valley around Axley Term.
Luis Leon Sanchez has come to the front now to set the pacemaking Astrolosa, going by him to try and get himself maximum points. Now, he will have amassed a fair number of points on the race route here this afternoon as well, so he goes over the top there, Phil, to get maximum points ahead of Sanchez and Efimkin in third place. Now, with 2.5 minutes advantage over the top of this climb with 44 kilometres to go, those three riders have got a very good chance of surviving, because I'm not sure who is going to chase them on the descent.
Well, just looking here at the pack, they've turned off completely on this steady climb. The clock is now counting on the leaders over the top. They're not really chasing. I think it'll be 2.5 minutes before these boys get over the summit. That'll be the gap for the last 44 kilometres to the finish. As I say, the contours make it look like a plunge into the valley, back down to the Ariège River and in to Saint-Giron. We passed through the town. It's a bit narrow in the town, but they weren't expecting a big bunch sprint to charge through. And then they go out onto the outskirts, the Avenue de la Résistance, and that's where they'll finish today.
David Miller looking very comfortable at the front end of the main field, and he's got two very solid teammates in the group with him. Bradley Wiggins starts the day in 5th place overall, as the three leaders now, Phil, that start this descent, which is a fairly technical descent, and they can afford to take the risks.
Well, they need to take the risks now. They've done all the hard work for the day. Let's face it, they've been really in the front of the action since we left Andorra, because we started on the climb of the Port d'Envalira. That's where it all shook out. And then gradually, once the main field brought back Cadel Evans, the others were allowed their head as they countered the attack. They split the leading group up on the climb of the Dagnès, and one by one they're being swept up by the Armstrong Contador group here. And I have to say now the Nocentini group, because he's back in that yellow jersey.
Frank Schleck with his jersey open there. Behind him in the red, white and blue is his brother Andy Schleck. And a lot of riders in this group also from Team Cofidis. The rider over on the left-hand side in the red shorts there is David Moncoutier. He tried very hard in the early part of the stage here, Phil, to get himself off the front end. And he was looking for the breakaway today. He'd said before the start of the tour he wanted to get in a long raid on one of these mountain stages. Well, maybe he'll have a chance again tomorrow.
Well, at the moment, computers indicating that the green jersey of Mark Cavendish is in the peloton. Well, I can assure you it isn't. That Paul O'Mark was in trouble today at the start of the climb of the Envalira. He's got to come home inside the time limit. That's the first problem of the day. I hope he will do that, and I'm sure he will. He's a fighter. But it means today, because of the small sprint victories out on course by Thor Hushoff, he took 12 points today early on when he was up with the front runners. And as a result of that, he is now the new green jersey wearer by 11 points. 2:42, I think it was, over the top, Paul.
Yep, 2:42, 2:41. That was Haimar Zubeldia of Team Astana leading them over the summit of the climb. And now they're just going to cruise down the descent. Now, the main field here, they won't take too many risks on the run in here, because this is rather a precarious, dangerous descent. You can see the road surface is made of gravel, but every now and again, Phil, because of the heat today, the tar has melted.
Just
and
look at
Cassar
this.
is going to get himself back.
He's dropped off on the way up, but he's going to descend like a maniac to get himself on the way down. He's got a speed wobble on there. The cars are seeing him coming. They're moving out the way. He's past the chief referee's car now. Just the brake is in front. Sandy Cassar is back in the frame here, and he's won stages from breakaways before in this part of the world, so he'll be up there very, very shortly.
And you can file this under fearless descending. Sandy Cassar has caught up again with the breakaway thanks to some smart downhill racing. So it's now Cassar, Luis Leon Sanchez, Mikel Astarlosa and Vladimir Efimkin working to stay away and contest the stage win.
We are now approaching 10 kilometres to go as they go under the banner here. Seeing that 10-kilometre banner for the four riders, they know now that the lead is enough to get to the finish. In the next 5 kilometres or so, they're going to start thinking privately. How do we outwit one another? And I think somebody's got to go early. These 4 guys, I think, will cross the line, Paul, with time gaps between them at the end.
And that's the difficult thing when you've been away for such a long period of time. And having been in a breakaway for a long period like this, these guys pretty much got away on the first big climb of the day, the Port de Envalera, which took them away from the Principality of Andorra. They had to work together as friends, as allies, over the 160 kilometres of the breakaway. But now what they have to do in the final 10 kilometres is try and figure out how they can outwit or outfox the other ones. I think it's pretty obvious that the man in the red and black jersey there, Luis Leon Sanchez, is the strongest rider in the group. But from a small group of four like this, it's not always the strongest man who wins. And as you said, Phil, very often it's the rider who's got the best tactical sense on the run in towards the finish. Luis Leon Sanchez is a prolific winner. He's won 5 races so far this year, but most of them have been in long stage races, not necessarily in a single stage like this where you're just going out for a bit of glory. The cleverest rider, I would say, is probably Sandy Cassar.
I agree entirely, but I was just thinking there, Paul, now can we work out the format here? If I was in that breakaway, who would I watch and expect to make the first move? I think that Cassar will open up the race.
More than likely, but keep your eye open very much on the rider at the back, Vladimir Efimkin. He's got the most to gain. He's probably had the easiest ride of the whole day. He won't want to make a move, though, until he gets down to the last 2 or 3 kilometres. And I wonder if he watched the video of how Sandy Cassar won his stage into Angoulême, because that move, as you mentioned there, Phil, was made at 3 kilometres to go.
It was. He spotted the rest of the riders in the breakaway, looked to the right, and he dived on the inside, and he was gone before. You only need to talk of a split second, and if once you're tired, you can't get back up to speed. It's just a pursuit to the line. I think Efimkin will probably wait for one attack from somebody and will then try the second attack. When we catch him, Sanchez will try the third attack, and all the time the guy in orange will follow the wheels and he'll win.
That would be great. I would actually really like to see Mikel Astrolosa coming first across the line there, wearing number 61. It's a tricky run into the finish, though, as well, Phil. There's a roundabout at 2.5 kilometres to go. Then there are 2 left-hand bends inside the last 1.5 kilometres to go. Now, that would be a good point to try and make a jump going round one of those corners if you are a good bike handler. And then it's just a charge down to the finish line. And it's slightly downhill on the run into the finish line here. So if you get yourself a 5 or 10 second advantage and you can get a massive big gear going, you can hold off everybody else.
And if you think we said that with feeling, everyone, it's because we walked to work this morning. Our hotel was just on 2 kilometres away from the finishing line last night. So we left the car there and we walked, and it was very pleasant. It's nice to see everybody else working. I must say the barriers hadn't quite gone up, but the arrows were there for the riders. And as they go through 2 kilometres, they do go through the town centre of Saint-Jérôme, which is a very narrow town centre. But they run out to the Avenue de la Résistance, and that's where they actually finish. That's a long avenue. I can vouch for it now.
You will have noticed, if you've been watching this throughout the whole of the afternoon, that the man at the back there in the white, black and blue jersey, Vladimir Efimkin, has done absolutely no work at all here. He's had an armchair ride, and his team are going to expect him to be the strongest man in the group, because he's been sitting behind some big powerhouses like Sandy Cassar, Luis Leon Sanchez, and of course Mikel Astrolosa. And I, as an ex-professional bike rider, really don't like to see a guy who sat on for such a long period of time get the victory.
All right, maybe you'll say, I'm sorry, guys, you can take the first 3 places.
I don't think so. I don't think so. That's not the way it works in professional bike riding. He knows that he has a responsibility to try and win this race, and he's going to have to keep a very close eye on the other men in here. Sandy Cassar may well be the first guy to make the move, but these guys still know that they've got to keep riding, because if you have a look at that clock at the top there, it's come down from 2.5 minutes to 1 minute and 45 seconds. The main field will be breathing down their necks by the time they come to the finish line. So they know they've got to keep working together as a unit until they get fairly close to the finish line. It's the front end of the main field. There's the yellow jersey comfortably across there, that bridge there. And that bridge is the small river of Le Salé. And that's another river which comes down here and eventually flows out into the Garonne. There's a lot of mountain rivers here that flow down into the valleys and then move across to the eastern side of France. Cassar doesn't look to be very fluid in his pedaling style. He's nodding the top part of his body. He looks to be labouring a little bit with his pedaling style. Now, that could be psychological. He could be trying to outwit the other guys to make them feel that he's actually weak and he's not somebody they should look at.
Well, if these boys stay away, and they should, 6 kilometres from the finish, 1:37. It is coming down. There's some steady pacemaking being done at the back, but it won't fall 1:37 in 6 kilometres. All of the contenders, they proved one thing today. They're all willing to attack. We had a super attack by Cadel Evans. It didn't work, but it could have done. We've seen Armstrong go on the attack with Contador and get rid of the yellow jersey, but he fought well to come back.
He did, and I think the yellow jersey rode admirably this afternoon. He didn't panic, and that was the important thing. We've seen no real showing from the big contenders, though, Phil, that they can open up the gaps yet, but they've just got to keep tickling away, trying to weaken the Astana armour, because Team Astana at the moment are proving to be head and shoulders as a team above everybody else. And I think that is also something important to note, that Johan Brunel has got a very careful job of work to do over the next 2 weeks of racing. Let's not forget, we have 2 weeks of racing left to go in this race to keep the team as a solid unit. He doesn't want the information in the press that's saying, oh, Alberto Contador's not talking to Armstrong. Armstrong only wants to win and he won't help the team. He's got to get all of that out of the team's knowledge and keep them together as a solid unit, because if you crack Team Astana into 2 pieces, that's when they'll get beaten.
That's probably the only way they can be beaten, quite honestly. Under 5 kilometres to go for the 4 leaders. Just looking down this long, straight, good tarmac road, this. Cassar on the nose. Well, these 4 leaders have just gone under the 5 kilometre banner. The lead has come down to 1:32 seconds. But they're not going to get brought back, and at some stage somebody's going to have to attack. After 3 there he goes. He's the first one to go, and you could almost preempt that for Mikel Astalosa. Cassar was paying attention. A little bit of deep digging required from Efrakim and from Sanchez.
Well, Cassar was very attentive, straight onto the wheel of the Spaniard. They've got a slight gap there, and Efrakim, despite the fact that he's had an armchair ride here this afternoon, Phil, has let the gap go.
You're absolutely right. He opened the gap, but Sanchez has quickly closed it. Attack number 1. Now then, where's the next one coming from? Again, I would expect Cassar to start attacking, and it's Efrakim. Efrakim has been brought back, takes the inside. Sandy Cassar said, I'm not going now. That's a fatal mistake.
That is a fatal mistake to allow him. He should have gone straight away to get himself onto the wheel of Efrakim, because Efrakim, as I said, Phil, is the rider who is the most rested of this breakaway this afternoon. He's been sitting on. These 3 guys have been working like Trojans. They need to nail him back very quickly, because if he gets himself 10 or 15 seconds, it's goodbye Vienna.
And the reason he appeared to have blown up there when the split came originally, he had Sanchez on his wheel, and he wanted Sanchez to come round him and take him back to the 2 leaders, so he had the strength to attack. A very, very clever move. That's how he did it. He launched it on the inside, and this time Cassar was looking the wrong way, and he looks at the other 2 to take it up. 2 Spanish riders chase.
Well, that's what he said probably. Now Efrakim has not got to look back at this point. He's just got to get himself into the zone. He's got to concentrate. Look how far forward he is on the saddle. He's trying to keep that big gear going as much as possible. Luis Leon Sanchez made the first part of the move, and now these 3 riders, they're all seasoned professionals, Phil. They're still prepared to work together. Now that is a good move by those 3, because if they start looking at each other saying, no, you take me up to Efrakim, then they will not catch him. But they are working as a solid block.
So we're looking at a rider here who's moving off now. We must not forget he finished 10th overall in the Tour de France last year. He's got a different role to play this year, and 2 years ago he was on the podium in the Vuelta a España, where he also won a stage and wore the jersey for 4 days as leader of the Tour of Spain. So this boy has a lot of power in that body, and he's gone now and is dragging away. Well, it's going to be possibly a perfect day for Team AG2R, because Nocentini got himself back into the race. He'll keep his yellow tonight, and this rider is trying to now take the first prize back home and say, well, I can do well too.
Well, he's sitting right on the front of his saddle, keeping a massive gear ticking over. He'll be in probably the largest gear that he's got. He's in the streets now of Saint-Giron. He will be looking for the 2 kilometre to go banner, then the 1 kilometre to go banner. I think, though, Phil, they're slowly starting to draw him back here inside of 2Ks.
Well, the trouble is, at 2 kilometres to go, they're going to look to each other, and that's a fatal move, because he just edges out another second, because they don't want to give all their energy to catch, knowing that the other 2 will go round. So it's been left to Astalosa to try and bring them back, and that puts Sanchez probably in the driving seat. Very sharp left-hander here. We're in the centre of the town now. off, will circumnavigate it and head out towards the finishing line. Brave move, but it had to come. And I must say that Astalos has been a powerhouse today.
Well, Luis Leon Sanchez nodding his head a fraction there, not very happy at all with the situation, but still these three seasoned professionals, these guys have been pros for an awful long time. Kassar on the front has been a professional since '99. They are still prepared to do the work, and they've got to keep going if they want to pull this man back, because he's opening up the gap once again. He's got maybe 3 seconds lead over them.
Vladimir Efekim is now revving at the limit of his ability, but the boys can't get across. The breakaway has been a long, hot one through the mountains today. Sanchez, who's been trying desperately to save himself for the finish, has got to commit now. He's got to gamble on taking the 2 riders with him, because I think he's the only one who could catch up.
Well, he's done a long turn there, and he's pulled himself back to within around about 25 metres.
1 kilometre to go, the roundabout, and then we're into the avenue for the finish here. Astalos has gone down on the left. He's up again. They're close. They're ever so close. Kassar knows how close they are, but he's not going to shut it down by himself. The minute they catch this rider, one of the others will go. And now it's slightly uphill here.
They're slowing down now. They've got to keep going. They dare not even slow down a fraction here, because if they do, the advantage will go to Vladimir Efekim. Luis Leon Sanchez has nailed it back again. It's only 20-30 metres, but until they get to his slipstream, it's advantage Efekim.
Well, Vladimir Efekim, he won a stage of the Tour last year, but that was on the disqualification from the Tour de France of Ricardo Rico. So he hasn't officially ever won a stage yet. But there's still, look at the speed now, Sanchez. He's going to have to bury himself and risk taking 2 of the riders to the line. Desperate moments here, also for Vladimir Efekim. Sandy Kassar has waited. Sanchez tipped it and has swept over the top of him. And now Sandy Kassar is trying to repeat the feat of Ongoaim as he races up. Now the kick by Luis Leon Sanchez, shades of Aurillac a year ago, as he finally has done it. He's got his win, deserves it. What a gamble, and he's won.
Well, he played a very good tactical game there, Phil, on the run in towards the finish. He used his energy when he could, and he slowly clawed his way back to Efekim and the main fielder in the streets of Saint-Giron as well. But that was a well-timed sprint by Luis Leon Sanchez. He picked this stage out a long time ago, and he came up with the goods.
So they're opening up the sprint here for the line now, but I must say that there are no sprinters apparent at the head of this field, so it could be a little bit of a free-for-all. These boys are sprinting for the 5th place, so there are green points. There's also prizes down the top 25, and so they're just going to go. This is Gutierrez who's coming up on the left. Either way, they're going to hit the line all together. He's very happy because the same team as Sanchez just wiped up from the bunch sprint as well. But they're all in, all the same time. There's still a blanket over the first 3 riders in this year's Tour de France.
A blazing hot day in prospect as the riders massed in Saint-Gaudens, and the explanation overnight that 2006 Tour winner Oscar Pereiro abandoned yesterday simply through frustration at his lack of form. Torhornshoft is in the green jersey, of course, now, having taken it off Mark Cavendish yesterday, but there was no action in the first intermediate sprint where all the points were taken by a breakaway. We pick up the racing with 10 kilometres to climb to the top of the Col du Tourmalet, and there's a 3-man break out front. Jens Voigt, Franco Pellizotti and Pierrick Fedrigo have a lead of just over 4 minutes on the yellow jersey group.
These are the 3 leaders on the Col du Tourmalet. They've just passed 10 kilometres to the summit of the climb. It's still the same: Jens Voigt, Franco Pellizotti, Pierrick Fedrigo. Then there's a group of 8 riders being chased by Maxime Bouet, so it should soon be 9, but that is splitting up, and now it looks as though we've got a little move here by Franco Pellizotti trying to break up the leaders, and they may have unhitched Jens Voigt.
Well, Jens won't give up. This is the first acceleration. Jens is a serious professional. He's been around for a number of years, Phil, and he will just get into his own level and try and limit his losses towards the summit of this climb.
Well, that is how a climber can pick up the tempo. Pellizotti is a good climber, and he rides well in his home tour, the Tour of Italy. He's never ridden well in the Tour de France.
Jens going to let them go. He knows that because of the kind of rider that he is, he can't respond to these chases of pace, so he will just stick to his own pace and hope that by the top of the climb he hasn't lost more than a minute and a half, and try and bridge on the descent.
So it looks as though Pierrick Fedrigo is still happy to work with Pellizotti here. Pellizotti just checking on what has happened to Jens Voigt. This is the polka dot jersey here. Christoph Kern. He's lost the lead in this competition at the moment, and it looks like Stewie O'Grady with him. Yes, it is. So they're slipping off the back now.
And Cancellara slipping off the back once again. An indication of just how difficult this race is. And we're not yet at the steepest part of the Col de Tourmalet. This, I think, Phil, is really starting to lay the foundations of what is going to be a very difficult last week of the Tour, and that's what I think everyone is looking forward to, especially the men trying to beat Lance Armstrong or Alberto Contador. They realize to do it, they've got to hit them every day. They've got to make it hard every day, because in that last week of the Tour, we really are going to see one or two surprises.
4 minutes 4 seconds for the two leaders now over the yellow jersey of Nocentini. Lance Armstrong, Contador, Evans are all still in this group. This is Maxime Bouet trying to reach the breakaway in front of 8, and it looks like he might do it shortly.
I just noticed at the side of the road there the orange t-shirts and waving a flag. That's the Basque flag, and this is at the Arrière de la Course. This is Oscar Freire, and not surprisingly that he's being tailed off. He's a man better known for his riding on the flatter stages. Big pressure now as a number of riders from Milram slipping backwards. That was Johannes Frollinger, who was in the breakaway yesterday, and Christian Knies. Over on the left-hand side, the orange shoulders there, that's David Miller. Miller riding very well in these last couple of days for the team, almost getting himself a victory on the roads into Barcelona. Jaroslav Popovic was unhitched, came back into the main field, and looks like he's about to get unhitched again. There you can see the yellow jersey riding at the front end of the pack. It doesn't look like he's under any pressure at all currently, but shortly I'm not going to be surprised to see somebody unleashing an attack. There's still quite a number of riders in there from Team Astana. And Popovic is really struggling at the back there. You can see him with the blue and yellow helmet. He's just trying to stay in contact. He knows that if his leaders are isolated, then they will come under attack on the run in towards the finish. Again, acceleration coming from Franco Pellizotti. Third overall this year in the Giro d'Italia, a very good climber if you can finish third in the Giro. But he had said before the start of this race he wanted to try and get himself a top 10 finish at the Tour. Well, he's lost himself a fair amount of time so far. He's 15.5 minutes behind in the overall standings and started the day in 55th position. This is the next group on the road, and this is a group of 8 riders: Vandenbroek, Paulino, Garati, Tendam, Martinez and Chiruka.
It's dropped down a little bit, Paul, this group. It's a sort of, this is that like 4 kilometre stretch in the middle, which is a little bit steeper than the average of the gradients, and it's lost 1 or 2 riders. I thought Voigtler was in trouble, but it looks as though he's okay at the back of this chase group.
Yes, this part of the climb, it averages between 6 and 9%, but once they get to 8 kilometres from the summit, then it kicks up to in excess of 9%, and that's where we may well see a move coming from 1 or 2 of the climbers.
Jurgen van den Broek. It looks like Belgium's found a climber here in this young man. He's been climbing very well in the Pyrenees, and he's just the sort of man that Cadel Evans will need. All of the team leaders have tried to put 1 or 2 men up front to draw the attraction, but there's nothing going on back here. Steady pacemaking by Team AG2R of France, looking after their man in yellow, who is an Italian, by the way. First Italian to wear that yellow jersey since Alberto Elli in the year 2000.
Just at the back here, there's Gregory Rast. A lot of riders were unhitched on the Col d'Aspin, but they actually took a lot of risks to catch up on the descent back into the valley. Popovic was one of those riders, got his way back to the main field, but again, with the pressure that AG2R are putting on, he's suffering.
Yes, and also Morier, but I think Cloden's okay. I think he's back up there with the main group at the moment. This is Maxime Bouet. No, that's not Maxime. That's Brice Feliu has gone off the back now. The winner of the stage in Arcalis in Andorra. The world champion Alessandro Ballan has just cracked up, and so too has Martin Mascant.
Martin Mascant, a teammate of Bradley Wiggins. Wiggins is riding superbly at the front end of the pack with his teammate there from the United States, Christian van der Velde. Ballan trying to ride himself into a bit of form. He won the World Championships towards the end of last year, but he really has been plagued by illness in the first part of this season.
This is the face of Franco Pellizotti. Third this year in the Giro d'Italia, his home tour. But it's his third Tour de France, and he's never had a good result, but he's finished both races.
But he has, Phil, I have to say, been extremely consistent at the Giro d'Italia over the years. It's always very difficult for the Italians because, of course, they want to ride well in their home tour. And once they've really got through that in the month of May, June, it's hard to keep the form forward to the month of July in the Tour de France.
It is. In fact, the double hasn't been done since 1998 with Marco Pantani, Italy and France in the same year. Of course, the great Eddie Merckx did it.
Well, the average speed of the first hour of racing was 48.5 kilometres an hour. It's dropped a fraction, and that's not surprising because we've just gone over 1.5 big mountains, and it's dropped down to 37.5 kilometres an hour average speed since the start, and that's still pretty rapid for a mountain stage.
Well, we're climbing now for about an hour at 20 to 22 kilometres an hour, of course. But that is enormously fast when you're on the Col de Tourmalet. Plenty of people to cheer them along the way. Spanish flags all around. And this is Franco Pellizotti of Italy setting the pace. Looking very cool, calm and collected just now.
Yeah, he's a great rider, and he really came to the fore in the Tour of Spain way back in 2001 when he was he finished in 20th place overall. But the Italians all of a sudden eyed him up as a great chance of a man to finish high in the standings in 3-week Grand Tours. And this year was his best performance ever in a Grand Tour when he finished third in the Giro.
He also led the race for 4 days, or has led the race for 4 days last year, the Giro d'Italia. It's a pink jersey in the Giro d'Italia. He's won 3 stages of the Giro as well. Now we'll see what he can pull off today as he heads towards the top of the Col de Tourmalet. Still a long way to go. 7.2 kilometres or 4.5 miles still to climb, and that's based on the leaders, not those who are following.
The last climb that we ascended, the Col d'Aspin, took the riders about 34 minutes to get from top to bottom. Now this time I have a feeling we're looking at about 50 to 55 minutes of climbing. And that's the difference between these two massive mountains.
This is the lonely figure of Maxime Bouet. He's still making steady progress, but every time he sees riders in front, they've been dropped by the chase group. He's passed the Duque, he's gone, and he's just checking to see who's coming up towards him. I don't think he's going to catch up with those leaders, quite honestly. They're 3:04 behind the 3 leaders. He is 32 seconds behind the main group. They're just round the corner behind that, in front of that yellow car.
It's a brave move by this young rider, trying to ride across that gap. AG2R at the front, first, second and third position, riding sensibly, but they must realize in the back of their mind that they are likely to get challenged because all of the main contenders are in the main field. Armstrong, Contador, Andy Schleck, Christian van der Velde, Levi Leipheimer. Nobody currently has missed out on the front end of this group.
Well, they can't leave it much longer, Paul, because if they're going to get away and then stay away for 70 kilometres, and it's beginning to look less and less likely that's the tactic, they're just going to take this race to the rest day exactly as it is this morning. No time changes.
Well, Team Astana don't really care too much about that because they know this race is decided in the last week. And they would be very happy to allow Rinaldo Nocentini to lead the race right the way through until the Alps. It's the other teams who want to win the race, who want to dethrone Contador and Armstrong, need to take the responsibility and try and launch the attack. I would expect an attack to come probably in the next couple of kilometres once we start to get up to the steep part of this climb leading into the ski resort of La Mongie.
Well, the yellow jersey looked a little bit fragile on the shoulders of Nocentini yesterday when he lost ground on the Col d'Agnès, but he made it up again. But today he looks pretty good, and riding with a team which also looks a lot stronger than yesterday.
Bear in mind, yesterday, Phil, he was put under pressure, but he was still trying to recuperate from that long breakaway on the previous day that brought him the yellow jersey. He will have recuperated a little overnight now and feel a lot more confident. And the fact that his team have risen to the occasion will make him feel that there's a great possibility of keeping the yellow jersey for a number of days.
Rodrigo looks a little bit more ruffled with the climb than the poker face here of Franco Pellizotti. Just keeping a sensible tempo. If the others can lift it, they'll catch him. He's not going to commit suicide on the last mountain, the Pyrenees, that's for sure. One by one, the journalists coming by on the motorbikes just to take the photos. They have a very strict code of order of how close they can come to the riders and when, especially on the mountains where it can make such a difference if you catch the slipstream for the rider.
This is Juan Manuel Garate on the front. You can see the yellow and red bands on his shoulders. Former Spanish national champion Jurgen van den Broek, teammate of Cadel Evans. And the fact that Cadel Evans has a teammate in this leading group film makes me wonder whether or not Cadel is going to have another try today. But sensibly, I would say it's not really an ideal day to attack, because we've got so far to go from the summit of the Col de Tourmalet to the finish. In the back of my mind, I wonder if the Tour de France organisers have done this on purpose to keep the race close together, to make it very difficult, but not to have big time gaps, so that we have a big showdown on the final climb of the Tour, the slopes of the Col de Mont Ventoux.
Well, it's another interesting theory, isn't it? Bradley Wiggins, Christian van der Velde and Gorman Slipstream. Right in our camera now is Levi Leipheimer and Sergio Paolini just near here. Well, it's not Paolini, that was
Zubeldia.
Zubeldia.
Aymar Zubeldia, I think pretty impressive rider to bring on board for Team Astana. And he will look after the interests of Alberto Contador. Levi Leipheimer had a tough time on the day up to Arcalis. He had a crash at the bottom of the climb when he went through the town of Andorra la Vieja. Took him a while to get himself back into the main field, but he still sits high up in the overall classification in 4th position, just 39 seconds behind Nocentini.
Nicholas Roach also riding well now.
Another one of the big tunnels as the riders head up towards the exiting of the tree line. Very shortly they will climb above 1,500 meters, and still 600 meters of altitude to beat them as they go up to the high spot of today's stage, 2,115 meters above sea level. It's at this point here, when coming down the Col de Tourmalet a couple of years ago, that Sean Yates was recorded at 114 kilometers an hour. The Breton flag over to the right-hand side with the 2 leaders.
Continuing the climb now. Just look at the enthusiasm here. There's a lot of Spanish people here as well. There's the Spanish Basque flag being waved in the face of an Italian. No reason yet to start cheering a new yellow jersey, because Pelazzotti is the best placed, 15 minutes and 23 seconds behind Nocentini, and he's 4:29 ahead of Nocentini just at this moment. 3.4 miles to the top, or 5.5 kilometers on the climb of the Col de Tourmalet. You can see just a drift of wind up here today, and it's favorable as well just now. We climb right in through the cracks of the mountains now.
You might have just caught a glimpse there of how high we have to go on this mountain. It really is a massive pass, and many people regard this climb really as being the gateway to the valley of the Barège. And once they've gone through the La Mongie, you feel as if you've got to the top of the climb, but actually you've still got 5 kilometers to go.
Yes, it's a nasty steep section in the village itself. This is Tendam to the right of our picture, having a drink. Juan Manuel Garate. Chirruca is to the left of our picture. This is the rear view of the same group, and here he comes, Maxime Bouet. Bouet, it's been a terrific ride, Paul. He's steadily come up. He left the Armstrong group and is now looks as though he's bridging the gap. There's a couple of interesting new young talents in this year's Tour de France, isn't there?
Yeah, Bouet is only 21 years of age, and he's one of the youngsters of the new team at Agri-Toubel. There are a lot of young riders coming through this year in the Tour, and that's a very nice thing to see. There's the next tunnel that these 2 riders will go through. I remember a few years ago seeing a great battle on the slopes of La Mongie, where Roberto Heras led Lance Armstrong out, and afterwards Armstrong said, I had to ask him to slow down. He was going up this mountain so fast. Right. But it was an important day for Armstrong, because he laid down the foundations of one of his victories.
Yes, and got rid of Ivan Basso. 4 minutes 31 seconds. They're still doing a very steady climb up front. The Sacing group is not making any impression on the 2 leaders. They're around about 3¼ minutes back. Bouet here, so close and yet so far, but he's getting up nicely now. He's going to contact just as they go into the town, I think. A lot of splits there, a lot more, but we're only basing it on where the yellow jersey is. There's plenty now behind as they continue here on the climb. This is Venotti, Alessandro Venotti, a Liquigas rider.
Well, Balan has recovered a fraction there, the world champion in a white jersey with the rainbow bands around the middle. He's trying to find some form this season as we go a little bit further to front. There's Matty Lloyd, on the black and red jersey there, just over on the right-hand side. One of the teammates of Cadel Evans, and I'd noticed as well that the Brit Charlie Wagelius was also in this group.
Well, this group has not been very aggressive at all, really. They are allowing Team AG2R to set the tempo. Nobody's challenging them, and it is because we are 17 kilometres from the finish over the top of the climb. They would feel that they're not going to hold off the race, even if they got a minute by the top. They would be caught. So it looks like they're saving their energy for another day.
This is Jussi Vaikkonen, the early wearer of the King of the Mountains classification. He's getting a little taste of the high spots of the Pyrenees. Bouet here, Phil, has done a phenomenal job, actually. He's ridden across a gap of around about 2 minutes, and he's just about to make the junction.
Good for him. These people are witnessing the catch here. There's a French rider, and a French flag he's just gone by.
Sitting on the back of that group, actually looking fairly easy, is one of the teammates of Contador and Lance Armstrong. That's Sergio Paulinho. The reason he's here is to make sure that if there is any acceleration from the rear of Contador or Armstrong, they've got an ally up front that they can tag onto.
Right, a few deep breaths now for Maxime. All the camper vans out in force here. You can never hire a camper van at this time of the year. They're already watching the Tour de France, I think. This is Jurgen van den Broek, who really is a good climber. He's up front as well because of Cadel Evans, who's being kept captive of the bunch. Paulinho, Garate, Tendam, Martinez, Chiruka, these are all the riders. Moncoutier and Voigtler. Voigtler got across himself, but it's a while back now, and now Bouet's joined here.
Yes, but the main field has started to pick up the pace because they're only 45 seconds behind this group, and that's an indication that once again AG2R are riding a very sensible tempo. Over on the left-hand side, David Moncoutier, the man in the middle there, Egoy Martinez, he wants this group to stay clear over the summit of the climb because he's already taken over the lead in the King of the Mountains classification, and if he can get himself a huge bunch of points at the top of this climb, he could hold on to that King of the Mountains jersey all the way through to the Alps.
Well, a fourth place would be a huge number of points, but if he could catch the leaders, he'd get 40 for being first over the top of the mountain. And that would ensure reasonable long-term tenure of the polka dot jersey.
We're just coming into the outskirts, Phil, now of the town of La Mongie. It's a ski resort. It's at around about 1,800 meters over to the left-hand side. And it's got incredible views from this part of the world, and just at the top there you can notice the high spot is the Pic du Midi de Bigorre.
Well, we're looking now at the leaders of the Tour de France and the Col de Tourmalet. There were 4 of them at the bottom. They got rid of Leonardo Duque. The Lance Armstrong and Nocentini group have always hovered around the 4-minute mark, and no one attacked all day yet from that group to bridge the gap. These are the 2 leaders. 4:34 on the Nocentini Armstrong Contador group. Bradley Wiggins is in there as well, continuing a terrific ride in the Pyrenees, that English rider. But now as we get into La Mongie, the road doesn't look very steep from a helicopter, but believe me, it is very steep just here.
Well, as they go right through the middle of town, that's where it actually kicks up to in excess of 9% gradient. The 2 leaders now are getting into that part of the course. This leaves them, Phil, with around about 5.5 kilometres to go to the top. But once you get out of La Mongie, it always seems to me that this course and this climb tend to get that little bit steeper.
A little bit less for the man on the front. That's 4.5 Ks for these as they continue up now on the steep climb. It's 74 kilometres done, 70 once they're over the top. There's the crowd, and this is one of the riders who's been in trouble at the back all day. It's David Miller now, but if David isn't, I don't think he's in trouble here, Paul. He's just taking on drinks, and he's continuing his fine ride in the Pyrenees as well.
Well, as they say in cycling jargon, he's doing the job for the boys here this afternoon. He's looking after his teammate and compatriot to Bradley Wiggins, who starts today in 5th place overall, which really is quite phenomenal, and his teammate Christian van der Velde is in 8th at 1 minute 24 seconds. David had a bad day a couple of days ago, but since then he seems to have recovered from that long escapade he made on the road into Barcelona, where for 1 kilometre he could have been a stage winner in the Tour de France 2009.
So unlucky. Maybe today. 4:37 the gap at the moment. Franco Pelazzotti, 3rd in the Giro d'Italia. And he said, I'm going to the Tour de France for a podium finish, and this is the first time we've seen him, and we've been going 9 days, but he's here now.
And he's looking very calm and collected. Eric Fredrigo, the rider we're looking at here, Phil, number 144, he's actually had a pretty good season as well. He won a stage in the 4 days of Dunkirk, but maybe more importantly, he won one of the big mountain stages in the Dauphiné Libéré, and on his way to get that victory, he picked up the King of the Mountains classification.
Yes, and that's a much better pointer, of course, than the race in Belgium, on the French-Belgian borders. Now, what have we got here? This is thinning out a little bit now as Garati is turning the screw. Martinez, he's third down, centre there with the little goatee beard. He wants that group back and gets the maximum points, and then he'll have a really solid lead in the King of the Mountains. Moncoutier, I think, might try something as well. It is definitely now, it's obvious by the way they're riding, Paul, they are not going to hammer home an attack. 70 kilometres to go to the finish. It's just not worth the risk of wasting so much energy.
Just a quick glance at the heart rate monitors. Chris Sorensen is at 173 beats a minute now, Phil. That's up to 90% probably of his maximum. And the wattage that he's putting out is 340. That really is starting to get just a little bit painful.
Inigo Cuesta, the oldest man in the race at 40 years and 1 month, and he's still riding well. Don't crack now, Inigo, you're nearly up there. And there's the man just getting a nice push there who won the stage yesterday.
No, that was actually Rojas. It was 117.
Rojas, okay.
And he's the man who won the sprint for 5th place yesterday on the stage.
That's right, he was. Now, the great difficulty, the 1s and the 7s on the race numbers look very, very similar this year in the Tour de France, but this certainly is the leader of Liquigas, Pelazzotti. Just listen to the noise here. We're on the Col de Tourmalet, 3.1 kilometres to the summit. Pelazzotti, Fedrigo. Four minutes 38 is the gap between the two leaders here as they steadily cut the trail through the crowd. All of these people are Spanish in the orange jerseys, and they'll all be saving their big cheers for Igor Martinez, who's chasing these two riders up, because a polka dot jersey will await him tonight at the finishing line.
Well, a massive crowd. We're leaving La Mongie behind. We've got about 3 kilometres to go to the summit for these two leaders, 5 kilometres to go to the summit for the rest of the main field. This is the group caught in the middle. Juan Manuel Garate is the rider doing the tempo. Jürgen van den Broek in the black and red jersey is a teammate of Cadel Evans. Laurens ten Dam with his jersey open there. A little bit further back in the red jersey is David Moncoutier of Cofidis. And sitting right on the back there, amazing to see, Phil, Thomas Vogler at the front on a big mountain stage. He's already won his Tour de France because he's got a stage victory to take home, and who knows, in a position like this he could be looking at a second one.
Well, this group, of course, the composition's right. There's nobody really near to the top 3 riders in the Tour, who are separated by a total of 8 seconds. Armstrong, Contador and Nocentini in that order reversed. And they will not waste energy chasing these guys down. It'll be left to the other teams to react. So they know if they can get over the top with 4 minutes in hand over the peloton, then they're free to fly, I think. Look at the face there on Garate, just concentrating, shutting the pain out of his mind and trying to keep a rhythm.
Well, a little sign there telling you just how far it was to go to the summit. That was 3 kilometres. The average gradient here is around about 7%. We're at 1,800 metres in altitude, and we've still got to climb up to 2,110 metres. All of the contenders are in the group that we're looking at here. Armstrong, Contador, Schleck, Levi Leipheimer and Christian van der Velde. Nobody really has missed out. Denny Menchov is in here, Carlos Sastre, all of the big names. Still no gaps appearing amongst them.
We're in the department of the High Pyrenees in France today. This is the high spot of the Pyrenees, the Col de Tourmalet. This is the climb, and it's a steep road through La Mongie. And still no signs of the yellow jersey cracking at all. I expected by now to see him hanging on at the back. Not a bit of it. This man has still got 2 teammates to set the pace and keep him safe and sound.
Well, the yellow jersey feeling a little bit more comfortable as he gets closer to the summit. Bradley Wiggins over on the left-hand side there, Phil, with the orange shoulders on his Garmin Slipstream jersey, riding exceptionally well.
Jens Voigt, who's been dropped, has lost 2:25 now. So he's just 42 seconds ahead of that chase group containing Martinez. He'll be pleased if he chips off Jens and move 1 further place up over the top of the mountain. The main field are at 4:38, is becoming smaller, that group, but nobody is attacking from the front of it. There's the lacettes, or the corners, on the Tour de France now as they steadily climb the mountain as if they were tacking across the ocean.
Well, Franco Pelazzotti is looking like a pretty impressive bike rider here this afternoon. And when you finish third overall, Phil, in a race like the Giro d'Italia, it's a sign that you have got sheer class. But he's always been consistent at the Giro, finishing in the top 10 on a number of occasions. But here, he's trying to ride himself back into a contender's position.
We go back down the road by a few minutes and see the chase group of Jürgen van der Broek, Paolini, etc. This is Van den Broek on the front, Garati in second place, Chiruka is in third, and then Igor Martinez rides in fourth. The wind now coming from the cross, and as we get higher, it looks as though it's getting a little bit stronger.
Yeah, the wind is coming over the top of the mountains. Jürgen van den Broek are proving to be a pretty solid rider here for Team Silence Lotto, and he's a man that later on in the Tour, I'm sure that Cadel Evans will be able to count on.
Well, I must say, if some members of the crowd could ride the bike, they'd jump on it because they're so enthusiastic. There's a nice view of the town of La Mongie, tucks right into the side of the Col de Tourmalet, and that is the main peloton are now going through the town.
That's a big peloton, Phil, for the Col de Tourmalet. Obviously, Team Saxo Bank have decided this afternoon that it is much too far to the finish to try and launch an attack here, and that's why I think we're seeing a status quo on the final day in the Pyrenees, and the yellow jersey has risen to the occasion. He's not really been put under pressure just yet.
Stephen Roach just getting a message in his ear there from the team manager. He speaks fluent French. At one stage he was going to take out a French racing license, but he wanted to represent Ireland because his father and his family live in France, of course, and so he has an Irish racing license, but his language, his first language really, is the French language.
So Jens Voigt, he was in the leading group of 4 riders, which slimmed to 3 riders. Now just 2 surviving, is about to get picked up by this next group on the road.
Come on, Jens.
You could, just looking at the style of Jens, the way he's riding here, you can almost visualize the pain that this man is going through.
Yeah, you can see it as well as feel it. He's gonna hang on in there because he's only got 2.4 kilometers to climb, probably 3 here where Jens is. And if he can get over the top, he knows he'll be able to hang on in there. It's clear today, nobody's attacking in the bunch.
You've got to love the way Jens Voigt rides, Phil. He's really a battler on the machine. He's a boxer, I think, if he comes back in a different life.
Takes a little look there at Laurens ten Dam. We go back up to the 2 leaders, still climbing very, very regularly, got a good tempo. All of the work being done by the Italian.
What I always find magnificent about a cycling crowd is you see the people at the side of the road with the Spanish flags. They're encouraging a Frenchman and an Italian at the front of the race. Even though they've come here to support the Spanish riders, they're cheering every bike rider over the top of the Pyrenees.
Concentration, and it's Fedrigo has gone to the front now to set the pace, give Pelazzotti a little break. Pelazzotti winning the climb of the Col d'Aspin. If he wins the climb of the Tourmalet, with pen and paper out to see if he hasn't taken over the lead in the King of the Mountains. I don't think so, because he hasn't really been there before.
He didn't have any points coming into this stage, and of course Igor Martinez behind has got an awful lot of points, and he will be looking for probably 3rd place over the top of this climb if they survive. The top of the overall standings at the beginning of the day was Christoph Kern with 59 points. Igor Martinez started with 54, and he's moved up to 62.
43 riders have scored points in the King of the Mountains, but Pelazzotti until today hasn't scored any, so there's no polka dot jersey for him. Now, where are we here?
A little bit of pain in the back. Frederick Willems there, the Belgian rider on Liquigas. He's being tailed off a fraction, but at this point he's still got a very good chance of surviving.
Yes, and that is 127. That'll be Sebastian Minard, who's going back for Cofidis. Our camera bike would like to squeeze through, but the team director doesn't want to let it go. That was a Team Columbia 8cc rider there at the team car.
There's Andreas Kloden on the right-hand side, so he recovered from the little bit of problems he had earlier on. Heimar Zubeldia just in front of him. Alongside them, Lance Armstrong in the black and yellow jersey. I think we have seen somewhat of a truce here, Phil, on the last Pyrenean stage. Johan Brunel, I don't think, wants to take the overall lead away from the man in yellow, currently Ronaldo Nocentini, because he realizes that the French team will ride their hearts out for the next few days over the flatlands to keep the yellow jersey and take them across the middle of France before the next battle place happens in the Alps.
I think that you're absolutely right. Why put the pressure on yourself until the next crucial showdown? Armstrong doesn't look under pressure. Can't see Contador at the moment, but he's here somewhere. Christian van der Velde is here, so too is Bradley Wiggins, who currently occupies that high position in the overall classification, 5th. Let's pull back and just see how big that bunch is. Now, with every respect to the great riders and the weaker riders, that bunch is so big, it means they have not really put the big effort in on the climb.
No, I thought they might have done. I thought yesterday was a little hors d'oeuvre by Team Saxo Bank and the acceleration by Andy Schleck, but theoretically it was turning out, Phil, just to be a little bit of a taster.
There's a Spanish rider showing him the Basque flag, full of enthusiasm. I think there are more Spanish people on the mountain today than there are any other nationality. We're not far from Spain, of course.
Well, you can actually probably walk to Spain from here. 1 kilometre to the summit there is the banner for these two riders, and they're going to go over the summit here with around about a 5-minute advantage over the front end of the main field.
1 kilometre to the summit for the two leaders. They've led all the way through the mountains today.
They certainly have, and that's where they're going to. You can just see the last little hairpin bends are taking them up to the summit. That's 2,115 meters in altitude, and Franco Pellizotti now has got to try and figure out what they're going to do over the next 70 kilometers, because it's still a very long ride to the finish.
Well, the parting of the noise here, the waters are parting as an Italian leads a Frenchman. The French are having a rather good tour, Paul.
They're having probably the best tour that they've had for a number of years. They've had a lot of glory out of it with 2-stage victories, leads in the King of the Mountains classification, and I think it's not over yet, because Peric Federigo is going to be a difficult man to beat if those riders at the front survive. Armstrong's face doesn't give anything away, does it? You can turn the clock back 4 years and it's almost exactly the same.
This man is so settled and is feeling this will just get this one out of the way, then we'll get down to the finish, we'll have a shower and jump on the plane and fly up to Limoges, rest day tomorrow, and then we'll start for a couple of days at least a different type of stages in the Tour de France. It is a big field. This looks like we've got problems here, because this is Sylvain Chavanel. Now where is he back?
He's trying to get back.
You think he's coming back from a problem?
I think he's just trying to get himself back into the into contact with the main field. He's obviously had a little bit of a hard time. The second group on the road is at 2 minutes and 58 seconds.
Nicholas Roach back on the front now. We go back to 1987 when Dad was doing the same thing, dancing on the pedals to victory in Paris, in fact. First and only Irish cyclist to win the Tour.
These two guys just making their way through, looking across here.
I can't remember such a long line of people watching, Paul. This is pretty much one of the best crowds we've seen on the Col de Tourmalet.
No,
of course, the interest in the Tour de France, as we're being told, is not there anymore.
But what you have to understand when you see a crowd like this, Phil, this climb was probably closed yesterday. The majority of these people actually camped out up here to be on the side of the road to watch the race, but also anybody else would have had to come up on foot during the course of the day.
Good day, Suzanne. That's got to be from an Australian. So there you are, Suzanne. 4:43. That was the German flag on the left of the road. We ran into people from Luxembourg yesterday. Well, I don't suppose they'll remember us, because they had rather a lot to drink when we met them. But terrific atmosphere. Memories of the great pirate, Marco Pantani, the last man to win the double at the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France in the same year. It was 1998. There's the regional flag of Brittany, the black flag there. They're all here today. What an atmosphere.
It really is phenomenal. This is a great third day in the Pyrenees before we set up for a well-earned rest day for all of these riders. But, you know, actually, the riders don't really enjoy a rest day because it breaks up the rhythm quite a bit.
And that was the Union flag of Great Britain there on the right as well. The chase group 1 kilometre. They're not going to catch those two leaders, that's for sure now. But the grimace there of the third rider, he's the leader of the King of the Mountains, but Igor Martinez looks to be as though he's really struggling at the moment. He wants so much, of course, to deliver the best of the rest and get the most points he can pocket. And at the minute, it would be third place on the mountain.
Yeah, and that's important for him, and he will give everything he can. This is the summit of the Col de Tourmalet, Phil, just around the corner, and a big acceleration coming from Pellizotti.
Yeah, Pellizotti, I think he was the strong man on the climb, so Federigo is not going to take the pleasure off him. Same order as over the Col d'Aspin. So Pelazzotti is over the top. The clock will start. Now it's 70 kilometres. Most of it downhill or flat. In fact, it's all downhill or flat right now. We plunge down a narrow section this way down the Col de Tourmalet. It's a bit of a dicey descent for a few kilometres.
And bear in mind, there's no safety net here. You can just see if you get one of these corners wrong, it's an awful long way down to the valley floor below, and these riders know that, and they won't take too many risks.
Well, they just turn left here, then you go down a long straight. You could easily hit 100 kilometres an hour down here, and then you start to hit the bends again. So you've got to make sure your brakes work, but they're being sensible.
For the first 3 kilometres, it's very technical like this with a number of hairpin bends, but once you've got past that first 3 kilometres of the descent, the road becomes a lot straighter and a lot more sweeping bends.
Now, this is the interesting sprint here to see if Igor Martinez can get the 3rd place. He's in 2nd wheel at the moment, behind Garate. And 3rd place for him will give him a nice lead in the Giro d'Italia, in the Tour de France today. Ex-teammate of Lance Armstrong, by the way. He now rides for the Euskaltel-Euskadi team. What will he get for 3rd place?
He'll get 32 points for 3rd place.
Yep.
I have doubled them up. 16 is it normally, doubled up to 32. He's already got 62 points total with the points that he got just a little bit earlier on. So he will be hyper motivated to come out of this pack and try and get himself the points.
Well, you know, he's really struggling here to hang on. These two are riding away. Garate quickly replaced behind by Jurgen van den Broek. So it does look as though the new King of the Mountains is in trouble on the big mountain of the Col de Tourmalet.
Well, Garate here really is stamping out a very vicious pace as he comes up to the top of this climb. But don't worry too much, I don't think, for Igor Martinez. He will find something special here to try and make sure he stays well within the points, although it's Moncoutier who's coming across there.
What a great level of mountains are. As now Garate takes them up towards 3rd place. Jurgen van den Broek is marking him. David Moncoutier is in his shadow, and then comes Igor Martinez, who he'll still keep the lead in the King of the Mountains, but with not the high number of points he was perhaps hoping for. Clock still ticking away, 2:28, 2:30 now, and Moncoutier is deciding to take that 3rd place. Maybe he's still thinking he could have a real go at the Tour de France when we get to the Alps. Plenty of climbs there to reverse the situation.
Well, I don't think Garate is too keen on that, because he just looked across at David Moncoutier and said, mate, I've just done all the pacemaking here. You're not going to sneak 32 points away from me.
So Garate comes over the top. Of Voigtler may have even picked Moncoutier as well. One thing's for sure, he got swept away there. About 7th it would be for Igor Martinez over the climb.
Well, now they're starting the tricky part of the descent, but what is pretty tough for these bike riders this afternoon is they're facing up to 70 kilometres to go from the summit.
4:47 to the main field. There they are, climbing as a group, indicating the pace has been good, steady tempo, but it hasn't hurt anybody of note down there. They're still all in that field. So because of the 70-kilometre ride to the finish, the climb of the Tourmalet has really been neutralised by all of the leaders of the Tour de France.
I feel a little bit sorry for this young man, 21 years of age. We talked about him. Philly rode across the gap to make contact with that group of riders, and then all of a sudden, once we got to the steep part of the climb, he got left behind. A little bit of youthful enthusiasm because it's his first participation in the Tour de France, and now he's actually paying for that effort.
Well, he's going to go over the top in 11th place if they don't pick him up, of course. Over the top of the Col de Tourmalet. Now, let's see. Come on, Maxime. It's not too front. Over the top, you'll be fine.
Well, Martinez...
7 points, was that all he got?
No, he went over the top in 7th place and got himself 16 points. So he's still got a pretty big advantage in the King of the Mountains classification. So that's a good one for Spain this afternoon.
Yes, and there's plenty of Spanish here, so they don't know it, but they're cheering a new leader in the King of the Mountains from Spain today. Maxime can't wait for the top of this climb.
No, he's learning just how tough the Col de Tourmalet is. Looking way back down into the distance there, that's the Valley of Campin that we're leaving behind us, and now we're about to descend into the Valley of the Barège.
Just checking over his shoulder, no reason to do that, except that he's just crossed in 11th place. Time to put the zip up and keep the chill air out now. Sometimes you might see them grab a newspaper to just put underneath the jersey to keep the wind off the chest. as a teammate, and that's Brice Feliu, who's just come over, so he'll be in about 12th place.
Brad Wiggins going over in second or third position. The yellow jersey not put under any pressure at all here this afternoon, Phil, and we haven't seen any battle done on the slopes of the Col de Tourmalet, and I am a little bit surprised after the way they raced yesterday over the final climb of the day, the Col d'Agnès.
Yes, it's Pelazzotti, Federico Garatti, Voigtler, Moncucci. They were the first 5 over the top. But Igor Martinez has increased his lead in the King of the Mountain. He will have 78 points now. Overnight leader Christoph Kern 59, and Franco Pelazzotti comes from nowhere into 3rd place with 55 points. We're looking here at the beautiful Pic du Midi de Bigorre, which is the real high spot of the Pyrenees around this part of the world. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. We're coming towards the magic 1 minute at the moment and 7 kilometres to go. In fact, we're just beginning to dip inside it now, and this is going to, I think, be Kearns. But if they can just get into the buildings and stay out of sight, that will help matters. But I can see Garmin trying to break through on the left as well now. Well, they may have some sprinters here. Well,
Bradley Wiggins knows how to sprint. He's got a very good pedigree on the track. But the important thing is they have to pull these 2 men back. And as they get kilometre by kilometre closer to the finish, if those riders have not pulled them back by around about 3 kilometres to go, they may well have just pulled off the big coup on today's stage.
Well, the crowd, if the crowd works, then they're with them all the way. They are cheering them right down the straights here. Now the peloton are coming. It's being stretched. This is the Laurens ten Dam at the back, who crashed on the Tourmalet, but has been part of the work rate for Rabobank at the front, but now he's hanging on. I would imagine he's feeling pretty sore right now.
Well, if he's not feeling sore now, he will tomorrow morning, Phil, because it's the day after and 2 days after a bad accident like that the body starts to react. Still, a number of riders of 2 different teams doing the pacemaking at the front. They've got it down to 51 seconds at 6 kilometres to go. These riders have got to start praying now, Phil, that they will survive. 50 seconds, the race radio is telling me.
This is Pedrigo. He's suffered this last 20k. If it had been 20k shorter, I think he'd be much happier. And so now Pelazzotti's having to lift. He goes back for a few deep breaths, but he has to come back pretty quickly to keep the pace on. 46 seconds it is at the moment. Officially 5.8 kilometres to go. We're going to see 5 kilometres very shortly now. Then they'll be ticked off kilometre by kilometre. If there's any more speed in the peloton, this is when it'll come.
Well, if this was a normal flat stage, I would say at this point in the game, Phil, that they would not have a chance of survival. But this is not a normal flat stage. This is not a sprinting stage. We've been over 2 massive great mountains, the Col d'Aspin, the Col de Tourmalet. There's 2 teams on the front doing the pacemaking, but they're not normally the teams that are used to working hard like this to pull back the race for Mark Cavendish or for Tom Bonan. These are really teams of the mountains.
Well, every day these last few days, breakaways have succeeded, so take heart there, the 2 up front, as they now continue to come towards the finish. Nobody willing to help Cees de Paan. This is how Team Columbia felt in the opening days of the Tour when they were carrying Mark Cavendish to the sprint victories. They got no help then either, which annoyed them rather. We are at 5 kilometres to go for the 44-second lead for the 2 riders. At 15 it was 2:03, so is it coming down quick enough? There still might be a delay in the reaction here.
Well, they've gone under 5 kilometres to go, and at that point it was about 45 seconds. It really is going to be touch and go, but they're losing the power. You can see the fact that the main field, Phil, is starting to bunch up there. That's an indication that in the pack the pace is starting to drop.
Well, this is when we should all be starting to cheer the 2 leaders, really, shouldn't we? But we sit back as neutral observers and watch these incredible professional cyclists in action. They've come over the high mountains of the Pyrenees these past 3 days, and they're still left to chase down 2 riders and ride hard as they can. There's the peloton under 5, and officially 42 now.
Well, 42 seconds, and that corresponds, Phil, to around about 500 metres, and 43 seconds is the official time gap crackling over race radio.
It's gone up by a second. I can't believe this. Now this will help. Another change of direction as well for the 2 leaders. We're getting into the narrower streets here of Tarbes now. Remember, this is the first finish we've had in Tarbes since 1951. I can't believe that, but it's true. We had a few starts here, but never a finish. The streets are narrow here.
Well, a little bit of a problem in the main field there, because Andy Schleck has just had a flat tyre, and that will create a little bit of panic, I think, on board for Team Saxo Bank.
We are looking at the following cars. There's been a little bit of a crash here at the back of the nose.
Flat tyre.
A flat tyre for whom?
So Andy Schleck.
Now this is crucial, because we are outside the 3 kilometres. If you have that problem inside the last 3, you all get the same time. So Schleck is in a spot of bother, to say the least. The team has waited for him. Schleck is the middle of these 3 riders at the moment. They've got to drag this man back into the peloton when it's going at its fastest. That's going to be a tough call. What a way to go to the rest day, losing seconds.
Well, he starts the day in 9th place overall, a minute 49 seconds back, but trying to catch up on a stage like this, Phil, at 55 kilometres an hour is certainly not a very easy thing to do. A few riders splitting off the front end of the main field. The quest is to try and catch these 2 riders who escaped and rode over the Col d'Aspin ahead of the race, the Col de Tourmalet ahead of the race. They had 5 minutes advantage as they started coming down the valley of the Barège, and now all of a sudden they're holding on to just seconds advantage. They dare not start to try and out-tactically maneuver each other. They've got to keep riding like this, taking turns at the front, setting the pace up until about 500 metres to go.
They just knocked off a kilometre there. No time gained or lost. That's the way they want to see it. And they brought back Andy Schleck in no time at all to the leading group here. And that is the way to ride, is Jens Voigt. I don't know where that man gets his strength from. The rider who is in the lead. He's been at the back collecting bottles. Now he stops and he brings his team captain back into the bunch. Now we're inside 3 kilometres. Any such problems, they keep the time they've got with that big field.
Well, Jens Voigt, he really has got a big motor. He has got a big heart as well, and went back there to pace Andy Schleck. I would think Andy Schleck panicked a fraction there, Phil, as they came into town, and he had that flat tyre, but his team did a perfect job to get him back into the pack. 2.5 kilometres to go, and it's still 40 seconds for these 2 riders. Federico at the front is setting the pace, sitting in his wheel there, 91. Pellizotti, as soon as the pace starts to come down a fraction, goes straight by there, keeps it up. They're riding at an average speed here of 55 kilometres an hour.
Well, the crowd cheer and cheer and cheer. Another kilometre. We are under 2 kilometres out. It could happen for them. 39 seconds at the moment. We'll see when the peloton get there. A very wide sweeping right-hander, all safely around. And the Case de Pon look as though they're losing their impetus now, as the man from Liquigas has split them up in the chase. It's going to be close, but I think they're going to do it.
Well, they're inside of 2 kilometres to go. They've still got around about 40 seconds. There was only 1 rider left at the front, Phil, there for Case de Pon. It was Luis Leon Sanchez round the town square in Tarbes. They are witnessing a very special effort by these 2 men.
I don't know why we've never come back here to finish a race since 1951, because the crowd has turned out in their thousands. 2 kilometres for the peloton, no gain, 38 seconds, it's all over. It is going to be one of these 2 riders take it. Virtually the day-long breakaway by these 2 men. And the Frenchman at the back has got pole position now. We're looking for the kilometre.
Pellizotti swinging off, looks across at Federico. They've brought all of the cars out of the gap because the referees know how quickly that gap can be closed in the final kilometre of a race. But it's still locked in at 2 kilometres to go. It was 40 seconds. That is what they've been dreaming about, Phil, since they left the mountains. There is the red kite, the Flamme Rouge, 1,000 metres to go.
And you can see why I don't think the organisers were expecting a big bunch sprint today. The roads are narrow here. It's going to be difficult for the chase now. Well, this is a day in the Tour de France when we want a dead heat. 2 riders over the line first. It won't happen. Well,
it's not going to happen. Somebody's going to win, and now Pellizotti has decided he doesn't want to come to the front anymore. He wants to take the wheel of Peric Federico. He's going to make the Frenchman lead out the sprint. It is oh so difficult to judge a sprint when there's only 2 of you at the front end of the race, especially when you've really worked hard together over all of these kilometres. Pellizotti, he's dreaming of a win in the Tour de France, Phil, after having 3 stage victories at the Giro d'Italia.
Well, this is going to be, I think, the way Federico is leading out here. Pellizotti does have a good sprint. Who knows what's left in the tank, though, after a ride through the Pyrenees. He's going to have to lead from the front. The Frenchman, he was looking the wrong way. Pellizotti has gone up the inside. I don't think Federico will have it, but they go round. Advantage Pellizotti on the bend. It's a sharp, sweeping right-hander. Now the Frenchman, has he got the strength to come out of the slipstream of Franco Pellizotti? Well, this is the year of the French in the Tour Tour de France, and I think he might. He comes to the line, he's taken, I don't believe this, 3 stage wins and only on day 9 of the Tour de France. It is fantastic.
That's a brilliant performance by the French. This really has been their tour this year, and this is a pretty dodgy corner here, a sketchy corner, and I tell you what, Pellizotti had read the book, but he couldn't get it quite right. Swinging round the corner there, this looks like Velits.
It is Velits, and he finished well up yesterday. Now, as we line up for the finish here, Velits is all over the road. Frere's making his move on the right, through the middle, a white jersey of Sergei Ivanov, and that's the finish of a sprinter. After a tough day in the saddle, Oscar Freire finishes it off for the main field. Quite a big main field has come away from the Tourmalet today, but the French have got a 3rd stage win in this year's Tour de France, and Pierrick Fedrigo, for him, well, it's his 2nd ever, because he won in Gap in 2006.
Most vociferous opponents of today's radio ban was Bjarne Riis, the Saxo Bank manager, saying it might delay him from getting up to an injured rider. So, of course, the first crash of the day involved Saxo Bank's Kurt Asler Arvesen. He got back on eventually, but had the worrying look of a man with an injured collarbone. Now, today's early breakaway was held up by a train crossing the route, which allowed Samuel Dumoulin to join them. And that settled down as the day's escape. With Dumoulin were 2 other Frenchmen, Benoit Vaugrenard and Thierry Hupon, and Mikhail Ignatieff of Russia, who's already been in 347 kilometres worth of breakaways so far this tour.
5 kilometres to go for the 4 leaders. They are still there at 21 seconds. Little Samuel Dumoulin is under that banner ahead of the race, but here come the race now, and it's not just the team of Mark Cavendish who's leading now. The team of Tom Bonen is there, the team of Tyler Farrer is there,
and the team of Daniele Bonatti are never far away, and Team Milram of Gerard Cholik. All of the sprinters see this as a great opportunity the day after the rest day. You see all the heads turning round there. Those are the lead-out men looking to see where their sprinters are. They don't want to bring a different guy to the front. They want to know where their man is, if he's close to them, if they're in the right place, and they're doing the right job of work.
Well, they're still all working, these 4 boys, each one doing a long, hard turn at the front and then getting deep breaths at the back as he goes back through the line to go back to the front. This is the horrible straight road before we get into the curly bits, and the riders now can see the quarry, but they're having to work really hard to reach them. Nice little rise there. That might break the rhythm a little bit. They've only knocked a second off, Paul. We're heading for the next kilometre check.
They are digging extremely deep, these 4 riders. They've lifted the pace. They rode sensibly over the first part of the course, but now to survive they've got to be able to hold an average of around about 50 kilometers an hour over these next 4 kilometers. They're now inside of the 4 kilometer banner.
3 Frenchmen out of 4 leaders here celebrating Bastille Day. They're picking up quite a strong tailwind now. 4 kilometers. It's going to be about 4 seconds knocked off in the last kilometer towards the leaders. That's not quick enough. If they keep going, there will be confusion when they get into Issoudun, and so the switching and turns might form an advantage for these 4.
Vaugrenard is the man on the front now, big bike rider, 3rd overall in the Circuit of the Sarthe in the early part of this season, and Samy Dumoulin, the winner of a stage of the Tour last year, realizes you've got to keep going. Even though you can almost feel the breath of the main field behind you, you've got to keep the pressure on. This is a move from Mikhail Ignatieff. He tried that a couple of days ago, and this time he hasn't caught out Samy Dumoulin.
No, he tried it onto the road into Perpignan. It didn't work there. In fact, Thomas Voigtler got to him and won the day, but there's another kilometre ticked off. They're just on a minute per kilometre here. That will make it 3 kilometres to the 3 minutes rather to the finish. At this time, they nailed back the Russian rider. He was given 2nd place into Perpignan in the same time as the pack. They caught him literally on the line. He was still in front, and now it is Thierry Hupon who's now trying to do the same. He's just trying to say, don't attack, work together, we can win.
That is the logical thing. If they start attacking each other like this, what it actually does is it takes away the impetus and organization of the main field, and it has the effect then of lowering the average speed. Whereas if you bear in mind, this group behind keeps a steady high speed, and they will slowly but surely eat into the lead. 9 seconds is looking very precarious now. The sprinters will be starting to getting that little bit more twitchy moving to the front, trying to stay in the first 10 or 15 places. It looks like David Miller is up into second place, and that is for his sprinter, Tyler Farrar.
He was looking round to see where Tyler was there, Miller. Now, they've made that left turn there. We are in the town of Issoudun, but we're going to circumnavigate it now, and the roads will get a little bit different. The riders have to stay very much alert, and they have to stay well organised on the front.
Well, there's another move gone from that leading group of 4. I think they now know it's completely and utterly over, but it's Houpon who's gone off the front. But look at the work being done by Team Quickstep there.
Houpon has jumped away, but the field here, they're dashing and dying. You see how narrow the roads are now? But this is going to be the shutdown here at 1.6 kilometres to go here. And it's being led up by the Liquigas team, trying to get Daniel Bernardi into the action. 1.4 kilometres to go. They've just caught Hubert Houpon, and I hope they'll make that bend, because that was a wide corner, and they didn't make the bend. Somebody shot off to the left on a very sharp right-hander. It's a Katusha rider who's gone down there, I think. And that was the end of Vaughan-Regard, the man that was in the break, but he's come out the tail. I don't know whether our cameras can see which the rider, Katusha rider, who went down.
I think it was Vladimir Karpets. Now's the big organisation by Team High Road. This is Tony Martin keeping the pressure nice and high. Inside the final kilometre, George Hincapie takes control. In Hincapie's wheel is going to be Mark Renshaw. He's the man, the pilot fish, to take Mark Cavendish into the last 300 or 400 metres. Cavendish is in third place. Big fight for Cavendish's wheel, because there's the green jersey of Thor Hushoff, and Tyler Farrar is right there, but he's coming up. It's actually going to spoil the lead out.
Well, Tyler Farrar is going on one side. They're confusing each other here. They almost took out the rider in the middle. As they line up now, 2 riders getting clear. Farrar trying to get himself sorted, but he looks as though he's pulling away. The green jersey there, Thor Hushoff trying to get on turns. The final lead out here by Mark Renshaw. Cavendish is now in a perfect position, but it is still 350 metres from the line. It might be too far. Farrar's hooked up to the back wheel of the green jersey of Hushoff. They've got to break soon, otherwise they'll let Cavendish go. If Cavendish gets the lead, nobody ever passes him. He's gone again. Now he'll kick again. And look at the face of Hushoff. It's beaten. He's trying to hang on for second place here as Mark Cavendish crosses the line, followed by Hushoff, Tyler Farrar, and I think the Duque is in third place there, fourth place rather. Well, Paul, he's just too quick. They should never allow him to lead out.
Well, in fact, I noticed that Garmin tried to get the switch on them when they came into the final group of chicanes there, but there was too much control, first of all by George Hincapie, then, of course, by Mark Renshaw, who looked like he was dying on the way down to the finish, but he took his sprint all the way to the last 200 or 300 metres, because he knows that once you lead out Mark Cavendish, it's impossible to come by him. There's the crash once again. That was the Katusha rider. I think it was Vladimir Karpets who went down pretty hard there. It didn't cause any confusion to the main sprinters at the front of the pack.
Now look at the face of Cavendish here. Mark Renshaw had to hold just a little bit longer than normal there, because they'd run out of lead-out men, and give Cav his best shot at the finish. He was always aware of where Hushoff was. Hushoff says he can't beat this man on these sort of finishes, and he's proved that point again. Tyler Farrar there in third place, the American sprinter, as he now looks at a green pair of glasses here, so he might be expecting the green jersey back, but he won't get it, because in fact Hushoff getting second will keep that lead in the green jersey competition.
It certainly will, but Cavendish is proving to be an incredible sprinter, but you know what, he can't win the sprints without that man there, Mark Renshaw. Renshaw led that sprint out to absolute and utter perfection in the last 450 metres. This is the arrival of the riders who were in that breakaway. There is Samy Dumoulin. He went all the way to the line. He was hoping to survive 1.5 kilometres to the finish. They got caught, and on the run-in they just gave up and decided to cruise to the line, and they've lost themselves 2.5 minutes. But it could so easily have gone in the other direction. Just look at this, the perfection of Team Columbia High Road. That's Hincapie there in first position, going around the corner. Then it's left up to Mark Renshaw. Renshaw now accelerates. Hushoff is right in the wheel of Mark Cavendish, but can't do anything at all. Look at the kick, look at the acceleration. He opens up the gap. These guys are in his slipstream. It's an easy position for them to be in, but they can't hold on to his wheel. Hushoff, he's got to stay as close as he can to Mark Cavendish if he wants to win the green jersey competition. Now we have to see which team has got the firepower to keep the race stretched out into a very long line. If nobody could take control of the front end of the pack, Phil, it makes it very dangerous indeed, because you can see the swamping that's happening right now, which is why you see the line moving forward. That's Kim Kirken on the front. Mickey Rogers taking over now for his teammate. Little word there saying, come on, let's keep the pace nice and high. And even in the white jersey, Tony Martin, the best young rider in the white jersey competition, he comes up as well. Hincapie is behind him.
Well, this is the order now of the lead out to the line. They've got themselves in organised formation. The others really have got to try and break that formation. I see Danny Pate is playing his part for Garmin Slipstream. Gerald Torrek's team of Milram, they're also involved. Liquigas have got themselves in a mess. They're trying to put it right to the right. They've got Daniela Bernardi there, who is starting to sprint very well, so they're getting confidence from that. And even Lamprey are now trying to bring people into the fray. I can see David Miller dead centre, but at the moment it's definitely Colombia who once again at 4 kilometres have taken this race, and they are showing the others how to lead out a sprint.
Well, keep it long and straight and hard, that way nobody can come up through the outside and put you into difficulty and swamp your sprinter. At the bottom end of that line of Columbia HTC is Mark Cavendish. He has complete and utter confidence in his team to set him up on the running down towards the finish. Maxime Montfort is the rider on the front now there, followed by Kim Kirken. You can see him with the red, white and blue bands, former champion of Luxembourg. And in third position, still with a bit of firepower in those legs of his, Phil, is Bernard Eisel. What a great race he's done today.
He's had a tremendous race today, but you can ride to the death for a team that you believe you're going to deliver the Manx missile to first place again, as he's done on 3 occasions. Remember, if he wins today, he equals the British record of 8 Tour de France stage wins in history, and that puts him alongside the great sprinter Barry Hoban. Well, heart rates are shooting up now because Brian Bamberg's on our computers doing 153 beats to the minute, but it says he's only putting out 5 watts. I think he must have blown the machine up.
I think there's a problem with the machine there. The heart rate is about right when it starts to creep up to 150, 160. Look how dangerous it is over on the left-hand side. Thor Hushovd in the green jersey is trying to find his way around. There's a little bit of a swinging off, I think that was, Phil. Somebody's gasket has just blown at the front end of the peloton. Hushovd on the bottom left-hand side, he's caught out. He doesn't have any teammates to help him through, and he's got to try and take the risks. He's going to wait there and wait until all of a sudden the door opens. You've got to accelerate straight through there and move yourself up to the front. Eisel is digging deep once again. Looks like Hayden Roylston has come up for Cervelo test team. He's going to integrate this line of riders at the front to make sure the pace is nice and high, so nobody can come from behind and create the confusion on the run into the finish. At 2 kilometres to go, we're just about to start the descent into town across the little bridge, which is quite precarious, and then the kilometre climb up to the line starts.
Well, this is very interesting now. Hayden is looking over his shoulder, first-time tour rider from New Zealand here, to see where his men are, but they're not organised. But moving up on the left now, it looks like we've got Philippe Pizzato. He was the rider who sprinted through the pack earlier on. He's going to have a go at this one. Hushovd is in the green jersey. Martin rather wants a little bit more space here. He's riding on the shoulder of Gerald Torek. This might be a different result here. Milram have got this organised as Michael Rogers here puts the pressure on, but he's taking 3. Milram, he's been split away from his team. This can make a very different approach to the line. These boys now are just about as fast as you can go, and this is not a routine finish into the line. And I would think that it might be advantage Cholik at the moment, and the young man on Columbia in the white jersey, Tony Martin, is beginning to try and break it in. There's a kilometre to go.
Well, I think Milram have got to the front a little bit too far out, but they've got to keep the pressure on. You're committed at this point now. This is the long climb up. Tony Martin now starting to take over. Right behind him, you can see George Hincapie. Hincapie will wait till the very last moment. Then in 4th position of that line of riders from Columbia HTC is Mark Cavendish. Queuing up now. He's moved up nicely there to the wheel of Cavendish as the green jersey of Thor Hushovd. Over to the left is the Garmin Slipstream acceleration. They're looking after Tyler Farrar.
Well, here is the huge lead out by George Hincapie, but you can see Ferrari's in there on the left. Again, Hushovd is onto the wheel of Mark Cavendish now. This is going to make all of the difference. The final lead out will come by Renshaw, but as on the right now, and Hushovd believes he's got the strength on the hill. Cavendish is going to have to fight. Now watch Farrar on the right. The 3 top sprinters have gone shoulder to shoulder. Tyler Farrar is going after Cavendish, but this little man with the big heart and the big legs has just made it 4. He equals the British record. He has got 8 stage wins in 2 years in the Tour de France. And again, that was not easy, Paul. The team did a fantastic job. but Cavendish this time had to be very special.
He was extremely special. Let's have a look at this one more time. And again, Phil, this is the victory of a team. The team didn't panic. Hincapie again does his job to perfection. They then leave it up to the Aussie, Mark Renshaw. Renshaw knows that he's got to keep going as long as he can and wait until he dies and swings out and leaves the advantage for Cavendish to come across. Cavendish waits a long time here, and there he comes up alongside Thor Hushovd. You can see Farrar on the outside accelerating. Renshaw clears the way for Cavendish to open up the acceleration, but the man from the Isle of Man has still got that little bit of power as he judges the lunge to the Rhine and gets win number 4 this year, win number 8 in total. Tyler Farrar has to settle for second.
The green jersey is his again, because in fact on the line Hushovd failed it quite a long way back. So Mark Cavendish gets a 4th win of this year's Tour de France and will now welcome back the green jersey tomorrow.
Now there's the least high-profile race leader we've had for a good long while, Rinaldo Nocentini, keeping his nose and his jersey clean and hoping that everyone forgets about him so that he can survive until the mountains. The man who's been telling us all along that he won't contest the intermediate sprints on this tour suddenly appeared at the front to take on Thor Hushovd at the first hotspot. Mark Cavendish won it easily in the end, that is to say Thor realised he was beaten and sat up. So 6 points for Cavendish, 4 for Hushovd, and public confirmation that Mark Cavendish is prepared to work harder for the green jersey than he's been willing to admit thus far. Shortly afterwards he was seen consulting with his new American life coach, so perhaps that had something to do with it. Now, it was a high-quality break that formed today. In it was Spain's Egoy Martinez in the polka dot jersey of the King of the Mountains leader. The rest of the escape group was out for a stage win.
Those are the two leaders. The leaders are Nicky Sorensen, who is on the front at the moment. In second position, Sylvain Calzati. In the group of 5 behind Martinez, Pellizotti, Poriol, Laurent Lefebvre and Marcus Foten. They've pulled it back to just 7 seconds according to Race Radio, so it really is not very much. And if you look at the leading 2 there, Phil, although Calzati is out of the saddle, they seem to be losing a little bit of their organisation, and Nicky Sorensen goes again.
Well, he came from the slipstream there, he really kicked, and Calzati said, well, that's it for me, I'm going to wait now. So it's one versus the rest. Look at that acceleration of Nicky Sorensen, and yet you saw his face as we did. He looked as though he was absolutely out of it, and he's kicked really hard.
Bang, that's not taking any prisoners at all. He looked a lot stronger than the Sylvain Calzati. His legs were going over very nicely indeed. He had a high cadence. He's now hitting 5 kilometres to go.
39th place overall, Nicky, 10 minutes and 36 seconds behind. Takeoff 6 minutes 24, and you're lifting him into the top 20 in the Tour tonight. But he'll trade that for a stage win right now, as Calzati is swept up by the chase at 5 kilometres to go. Calzati rejoins the chase. It's 6 versus 1, and the yellow jersey group is going to have to come home together today at the back.
Well, 6 versus 1, but this is a very strong one. Nicky Sorensen now alone. He doesn't have to hold anything back. He will dig into his suitcase of courage, Phil, to pull out everything possible to try and get himself to the finish line. He knows that these guys behind will keep working as a solid block, but he knows also that Sylvain Calzati is a spent force. He's got nothing left in his legs here this afternoon, and I think that may well be the killer blow going for the Dane.
Well, he's going to sit at the back there and hope he can recover. Calzati, it's gone out to 20 seconds. They never got that when there were 2 of them, and now it's gone for himself. They're going to have to reorganize here over the top of this little rise. All of the rolling hills here of the Vosges, and a little bit of downhill welcome now by the man who's taken the bull by the horns, and he's trying to ride home to his first ever win in a Tour de France.
Well, you notice that before the 5 riders were just holding it. In fact, there's another man, another tragedy at the front, because Remy Poriol cannot take this chase anymore. He's been left behind by the group. Inside of the 4 kilometres to go banner, it's almost up to 30 seconds. Nicky Sorensen now is starting to build a very interesting lead.
He's a tremendous cyclist. This is 7th Tour de France. He's never not finished under the Eiffel Tower in Paris. He's always made home. His best finish was in 2002 when he finished in 20th place, and that could be where he sits tonight if he keeps gaining time.
Well, he's got a long straight behind him now, and the impetus is certainly going out of this group. Calzati is still managing to hold on. Remy Poriol has completely and utterly disappeared from that group. Spent force. He must have dug really deep in to try and help to pull back the 2-man chase group. But unfortunately for him, it looks like it's almost over, because Sorensen does not look like a man that's going to weaken to me.
Now there's got to be reaction. Looks like Pelazzotti has found he's now sitting around a lot of tired riders here. So the two riders first and second in the King of the Mountains title are having to go on the flat together. Pelazzotti goes over to left, Martinez to the right. Calzati will just take any wheel if he can grab it. He's the rider in blue. And the rider at the back here is Marcus Foten. He was a rider I thought might have won today as well.
Well, Foten, a former wearer of the best young riders jersey a couple of years ago, but this man made both of the moves that counted this afternoon. He made the first move to come out of the group of 7, and then he made the next move to leave Calzati behind. At 3 kilometres to go, he's probably still looking at a 25 to 30 second advantage. 31
seconds. We'll wait and see what the riders do as they go under the banner. 32 at the moment. Out of the saddle, Franco Pelazzotti as they head for the 3 kilometre to go banner. 6:26 now to the back group. Well, Sorensen is on with a chance of winning this today for sure. There is 3 kilometres to go. These riders looking at one another because Nicky Sorensen has gone by half a minute under the banner there. And now Marcus Foten, the rider we just mentioned, has attacked.
Lefebvre went actually. B-box, Marcus Foten is stuck at the back there. Same coloured shirt, but a different team. The B-box rider was the one that went straight over the top. Sylvain Calzati now, Phil, he's been popped out of the back. These riders now realising at 3 kilometres to go, this is the last possible chance of a stage victory this afternoon. You don't get this chance very often throughout a career. You cannot lose it. You've got to give everything on the run in towards the finish. Lefebvre round the corner there. Pelazzotti has tried a number of times to get out of the front of this group, but he's locked in. They always chase him down. They realise he's probably the strongest man in that group of chasers.
Under 2 kilometres to go now. He's beginning to dream of a stage win here in the Tour de France, as Nicky Sorensen will probably know Lefebvre's taken a dive after the finish, but they're all coming back together down there. And Pelazotti's now trying to make last desperate moments. Time running out for this Italian rider who was 3rd in the Giro d'Italia this year. He's been monitored. Once you're in amongst the barriers, you know you're not far from the finish. Nicky comes round that bend there. He's not far from 1 kilometre to go. He's downtown Vittel now.
1.5 kilometres to go. He went round that corner there, Phil, full tilt, no touching of the brakes at all. He didn't lose any of his impetus at all. He swings around these corners, waiting to hope and see the flamme rouge, the red kite in the sky, and still Laurent Lefebvre ready to have a little go. Igor Martinez comes across the gap and is asked to go through and set the pacemaking. That, though, is not the way you're going to catch this lone leader. The only way they could have caught him was to keep working as a solid block. There is the flamme rouge. 1,000 metres to go for Nicky Sorensen.
1,000 metres for Nicky Sorensen. He's going to win his first ever stage in the Tour de France at the 7th attempt. And he's gone under that banner now and he's running away. Wise man checking out. 34 seconds is the gap. They can't possibly close that down now. Been a tremendous attack. Saxo Bank, remember, they started the Tour de France with a win by Fabian Cancellara. Now they're delivering unexpectedly with Nicky Sorensen.
Well, he deserves the win here, Phil, because he was the one who laid down the foundations for this solo move. He was the one who made the first attack out of the group of 7. He was joined by Sylvain Calzati. When he felt that Sylvain Calzati was starting to weaken, he hit him hard with a second attack to launch this solo move. Has opened up 30 seconds over the chasers, and he should be able to cruise and enjoy the last 200 or 300 metres.
Through the grimace there, one can see a smile beginning to pop out as he rides up the home straight. Now he's about to celebrate his first victory since June last year when he was champion of Denmark. And before that, you go back 4 years. So it's going to be a great moment. He's done enough. He nods to the crowd. It's time for the victory salute now, I think, as Nicky Sorensen delivered a glove blow here for Denmark and for Team Saxo Bank, even if the Norwegian flag seems to be welcoming him home down the home straight. This is the way you win stages. You never give up thinking about it. The break went 78 kilometres out at 211 kilometres. It's the moment of glory. Nicky Sorensen takes it.
Well, he really enjoyed that victory. He's got a clear finishing straight behind him, Phil, and it's going to be a sprint for second place. Leading the sprint at the moment, lime green jersey on the shoulders of Franco Pelazzotti. Behind him, Igor Martinez. Behind him, Laurent Lefebvre, Sylvain Calzati and Marcus Foten. They are going to sprint for the worst position on a stage of the Tour de France, and Pellizotti's already had a second place.
And he always seems to get himself in the wrong position, poor old Franco Pellizzotti, because now he's being obliged to lead these riders to the line. Lefebvre could have been expected to make the move as well, because the French are having their best tour for years, and Laurent Lefebvre is going to be challenged by Igor Martinez if he's made it the wrong move, but I think he's too strong here. The B-Box boy will be very upset he allowed that man to escape, but he gets second place today, Laurent Lefebvre.